Okay, Rabbi Sai, so this is we didn't get to finish last week before Shavuos. We were discussing the difficulties in the Gemara in Yevamos. That over there, as if you recall, Shaul was debating with Avner and Doeg whether or not David could be a king, because Shaul had these fears that maybe David was going to take over, rightfully so, because he miraculously fit into his armor, and Shaul was the tallest man in Klal Yisrael, and all of a sudden David fit into it, so it intimated he got a little nervous. So he wanted to find out the lineage of David. Could he be king or not? So we know Doeg said, forget about being king. He can't even marry, he's not even a kosher Jew, he can't even marry into Klal Yisrael. Why? Because he's from Moab. Who was his grandmother? Ruth. And the pasuk says you can't marry, a Moab can't join Klal Yisrael. It doesn't mean they can't become a ger, but it means they can't marry into the regular purebred community of Klal Yisrael, right? Lo yaveh aman u'moy b'kal Hashem. Doesn't mean that they can't become a gerim. It just means that they can't marry into the purebred, the pure parts of Klal Yisrael. Fine. So there was a whole debate. No, what did Avner say? He's okay, because this din is only applicable to the males, only the males of Moab. It's not applicable to the females. Moab v'loy Moabit. So what did Doeg say back? What are you talking about? There are many other people that cannot marry into Klal Yisrael, like a mamzer, like a mitzri, like a doimi, and even though the Torah says in the using the male gender, we know you can't marry a mitzri or a mitzris. You can't marry a mamzer or a mamzeris. You can't marry a doimi or a doimis. It doesn't make a difference what the way the Torah, the gender the Torah uses. It means female and male. So Avner said back, no, you're right. But over here by Moab, since the Torah gives a specific reason, what's the reason? That they should have hosted Klal Yisrael, but Klal Yisrael was in the desert. Moab should have been gracious. They should have had gratitude for what Avram Avinu did for their grandfather Lot, and they should have hosted Klal Yisrael, supplied them with food and drink. And that's why they are ostracized from Klal Yisrael, but that doesn't apply to the females, because the females are not the ones who should go out to a foreign nation and offer them food and drink. So since the Torah gives a specific reason, and that reason doesn't apply to females, therefore it doesn't apply to my avis. On that, Doeg said, no, what are you talking about? It's not true. Females should go out and be gracious too. Males should go to males, and females should go to females. The Moab men should have gone to the male Klal Yisrael and give them cake and cookies, and the women of Klal Yisrael should have gone, the women of Moab, the Moaviot, should have gone to the women folk of Klal Yisrael and bring them and host them and supply them with and be hospitable. So they didn't know. They came to stalemate. They didn't know if David, forget about it, was allowed to be a king. They didn't know if he was even allowed to marry into Klal Yisrael, because they didn't know if this law of Moab is it only for male or female. Until all of a sudden, someone named Yeser HaYisraeli comes into the Beis Medrash, takes a sword, sticks it in the middle of the Beis Medrash, and says, I have a Kabbalah from Shmuel Haramasi, Amoini v'lei Amoinis, my Avi v'loi my Avis. He just says, this is the way it is. So I heard from Shmuel Hanavi, and he sticks a sword in the middle of the Beis Medrash, and says, this is what it is. That's the Gemara. So we mentioned that the Mashal and the Brisker Rav has three questions. First of all, question number one was, how in the world is Doeg questioning the validity of Ruth and David to enter into the congregation? What is that supposed to mean? Boaz married Ruth. Doeg is questioning Boaz? Right? This story is way after Boaz, right? 3 generations later. We know that Boaz married Ruth. So all of a sudden Doeg wakes up and says, oh, by the way, I'm not too sure if this is proper or not. Boaz was a Gadol Adar. He was Ifsan. Ifsan was a Gadol Adar. He was a Shayfet. So what's going on here? That's the Mashal's question. Question number 2 we mentioned, if you recall, when Boaz was debating with Pliny Almaini, Pliny Almaini said what? Pliny Almaini said, Boaz, I don't want to marry Ruth. Why? Because I'm afraid I will destroy my Nachala. So we asked the same question. Pliny Almighty seems to be some anonymous type of guy. What in the world was he was questioning Boaz? He was questioning Boaz, who was the Gadol Adar. Boaz says it's okay. And we also asked last week, why did Pliny Almighty say, oh, I'm worried about destroying my legacy. I'm worried about my future progeny, my children. What about if the issue is that you can't marry Ruth, forget about the children and the progeny. There's a law for any male, purebred male of Klal Yisrael to have bia, to live with the Moavis. Why is he talking about, I'm afraid I'm going to destroy my nachala. I'm afraid I'm going to destroy my legacy. If you Pliny Almighty think Boaz is wrong, then just say, I can't live with her. It's also for me. Forget about my children, right? And finally, we said, what is going on here with Amasa with Yeser Yishmaeli? His name was Yeser Yisraeli. But they call me Yishmaeli to connote that he took a sword. What is this? That's the way you win a fight in the Beit Medrash. Your Chavis says A, you say B. You say, okay, here's a sword. Boom. You better do what I say. I'm going to chop your head off. What is that? There was questions. They get to stalemate. What is this business that just comes in with a sword and says, well, this is the way it is? That was the question. Is it Moavi v'lo Moavis or not? Oh, so as you recall, we said that the Mashah dealt last week. We gave a whole share based on the Mashah to answer all these questions. This week we're going to start off with the Brisker Rav. The Brisker Rav also asked these questions. And the Brisker Rav first the Brisker Rav introduces us to two very famous Rambams. The Rambam says like this. The Rambam is talking about when could a later generation undo a previous Bezdin's psak din. Is that possible? Let's say there is a Bezdin that made a psak din in the year 1800, whatever. Could a Bezdin in the year 2000 say, no, we are undoing that ruling. There's appeal, we accept the appeal, and we're undoing the ruling of the earlier Bezdin. So, we're not going to go through all the issues, but the Rambam says there are two groups. One group is a Kabbalah Moshe Sinai. If a Bezdin says that there was a Kabbalah Moshe Sinai, that the law is such and such, Rambam brings down, no Bezdin that comes after that is allowed to say, oh no, we think you're wrong. What do you mean you think you're wrong? If the Bezdin who's in the transmission, who's in the tradition says, this is a halacha Moshe Sinai, that's it. No later Bezdin 100 years later say, oh, we think that's a mistake. We think that's wrong. Right? That's the famous Rambam. Divrei Kabbalah ein behem machlokes la'olam. If there's a halacha Moshe Sinai, no one can say that, oh, maybe Moshe was wrong. No one can say that. Impossible. That's the famous Rambam on a halacha Moshe Sinai. There's never a machlokes. Right? Meaning, maybe someone will say, maybe there's some Bezdin that doesn't know it's halacha Moshe Sinai, but once it's established it's halacha Moshe Sinai, that's it. Okay. Now, we all know that when God gave the Torah, He didn't tell us all the Gemaras, and He didn't tell us all the machlokes and all the drushes. He gave us a toolbox called the Yud Gimel Midas, right? The laws of the Hamudical laws, right? How we use Kalachoyim, Gzeir Shava, Hekish, all the drushes. The Rabbi actually didn't tell us each drusha. He just told us how to make the drushes. So let's say you have a Bezdin in the year 1600 makes a drusha. Using Yud Gimel Midas. A Bezdin 200 years later says, you know what? I think that Bezdin is wrong. I think their drusha is faulty. I think they made a mistake. Can a latter Bezdin uproot a former Bezdin's drusha? The answer is yes, 100%. Open Rambam. Bezdin shadoshu ba'achas hamidos. What does midos mean? Doesn't mean having good midos. It means the Hamuticals, right? K'fi mashinir b'neim shadin kach din. So there's an earlier Bezdin that used that toolbox and extracted a law based on your good midos. So Amar Achrein Bezdin Acher, and another Bezdin came, a future Bezdin, and they think V'nir Tam Acher L'Stoisai din, and they say no, they think the former Bezdin made a mistake. The latter Bezdin could undo the former Bezin's drasha. Like it says, Shmuel Shayfer Shia B'Mahem Ein Tachar Lechet Ela Aka Bezin Shebedorcha. Right? So what does it say over here? If it's Halacha Moshe Sinai, if the early Bezin says Halacha Moshe Sinai, a later Bezin can't say those are mistaken. It's wrong. That's it. That's set in stone, edged in stone. But if it's the Yud Gimel Midas, a latter Bezin can actually go ahead and say, we think that they made a wrong Kal V'chomer. They made a wrong Zera Shava. They made a wrong Hekish. We think they made a mistake. Because again, these things were not given at Sinai, just the overall tools, not each drasha. Okay? So that's what the Brisker Rav introduces. Says the Brisker Rav, according to this, we can understand what's going on over here. Question number 1. The issue was, until Yeser HaYishmaeli came into the scene, everyone thought that this din, they knew about this law, Moav V'lo Ma'avis. They knew that such a concept existed, but everyone thought that it was a drasha. Boaz got up and made a drasha. Boaz, they didn't think Boaz had a Halacha Moshe Sinai. They said Boaz, through his own acumen, through his own acuity, his own keenness, decided to make a drasha, Moav V'lo Ma'avis. And is that Boaz's prerogative? Is that his right? Yes, it's his right. He's allowed to make that drasha because he's a Gadol Hadar. He's 100% the Gadol Hadar. And he's allowed to make that drasha. A couple of 100 years later, Dog says, I have full respect for Boaz. But I think he made a mistake. I say, Dog, you're 100 years later. You could argue on Boaz? Of course, that's what he said in the Rambam. That if the way he came out to his outcome was through using the Yud Gimel Midas, by using his own abilities to make drashas, Dog says, I think he made a mistake. Like he said, it's just Ma'av V'lo Ma'avis. You don't say Ma'am V'lo Mamzeris, right? So he said, I think he's making a mistake, right? And he has it right. So now he answered, it's not Dog. Dog is arguing on Boaz, but respectfully. Then we said, what is it about Pliny Almighty? Pliny Almighty didn't say to Boaz, I think you're wrong. That's not what Pliny Almighty says. Pliny Almighty didn't say to Boaz, I can't live with Ruth because I'll be dealing with Avera by living with her. Pliny Almighty said like this, Boaz, I think you're right. I think it's okay to marry Ruth. I think you're right. Your drush is right. And I have no problem to live with Ruth. But Pliny Almighty says, I'm afraid in the future, a couple of 100 years down the line, i.e., which did happen, some big rabbi is going to say that they think your drush is wrong. So Pliny Almighty said, which actually Derided did. So Pliny Almighty said to Boaz, of course I respect your drasha, but it's a drasha. It's not a Kabbalah Moshe Sinai. It's a drasha. And I would rely on it. I'm going to rely on it. Pliny Almighty said, I'm living with Ruth, no problem. That's not the issue. But I'm worried about my great-grandchild. Later down, a couple 100 years down the line, some other rabbi, Bedouin, is going to say that the drasha was wrong. And from then on, my kids will become puzzled. Meaning, even if later, let's say Dog was right. It's not like retroactively Pliny Almighty did something wrong. Even if Dog is right, and it was a very usher, but the truth is, Pliny Almighty did nothing wrong, because he's allowed to rely on Boaz. And Boaz also had the right to make a drasha. Because, like it says, each judge in his generation. So, that's why the Pliny Almighty didn't say, I'm worried about me. He said, I'm only worried about my kids. My kids later on won't get into Harvard. They won't get into Brisk. Why? Because, look, the kids are puzzled. When did the kids become puzzled? Only the later generations, when the original drasha was uprooted, was upheaved, right? And now we understand, says the Brisker Rav, what exactly happened here. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, so they're having this raging debate in the Beis Medrash, raging debate. Should they give food? Shouldn't they give food? Should the women go out give food? Should women not give food? Are they considered culpable, the women of Moab or not? All of a sudden, walks in Yeser HaYishmaeli and puts his sword down and says, "You guys, you're making a big mistake here. You're in the wrong ball field. You're making a big mistake here. This is not a drasha of the Yud Gimel Midas. Kach mekublani mishmor emasi. I have a Kabbalah from Shmuel. When you use the word Kabbalah, that means it's saying there's a Kabbalah from Shmuel and from the previous generation up to Moshe Sinai. It's a Halacha Moshe Sinai. So all of your equivocations over here, should they go out and give food? Should they go out to give food? What should women do? It's irrelevant. So the sword was symbolic. He wasn't going to kill anyone. The sword was symbolic to show this is not something debatable. Not because he's using brute force, because it's just nothing debatable. Because this is not like the Rambam about the Yud Gimel Midas that a later generation could uproot it. This is like this other Rambam. It's like Kabbalah Halacha Moshe Sinai. And since the Kabbalah Halacha Moshe Sinai, it is irrelevant. It's not a drasha mo'avi v'loy mo'avi. It's not a drasha. There is no drasha. And the truth is, if you open up a Rambam, he brings down, you should know you're allowed to marry a mo'avis. And he says, why? Because halacha Moshe Sinai. The Rambam and also the Smag, they all say this din that you're allowed by mo'avis is halacha Moshe. And they were trying to figure out, where did Rambam get that from? How does he know that? This is the Gemara. This is the Gemara that he got it from. That Yesar Shme'eli produced the sword to prove his point. Okay, so that is with the Brisker Rav, we've answered all the questions. How Doeg could argue on Boaz, what Pliny Almani's equivocation was, what his issue was about the legacy only, and what exactly Yesar Shme'eli was trying to do over there by what his way was to avert the whole issue and to avoid the whole issue, and saying that you guys are in the wrong playing field. But
doesn't the question fall back on Pliny Almani?
So it comes out that Pliny Almani wasn't. It's a little bit weak. You have to say it wasn't. Pliny Almani did not know what Halacha Moshe Sinai. Doeg didn't know what Halacha Moshe Sinai. For all I know, Boaz didn't know what Halacha Moshe Sinai. We don't even know exactly what happened there. We don't know exactly what happened over there. The thing was, there were many Halacha Moshe Sinai that were lost when Moshe died. So it could be only Shmuel knew the Halacha Moshe Sinai. I don't know where he got it from exactly. So that's a good question. What exactly did Boaz tell Pliny Almani? According to the Brisker Rav, at least the Pliny Almani did not think that it was Halacha Moshe Sinai. He trusted Boaz, he believed Boaz, but he thought that Boaz was doing a Yud Gimel Midas type of drasha, using the Hermeneuticals, and it became revealed later on in history that no, that's not what's going on. But it's a good question. Did Boaz know Halacha Moshe Sinai or not? I don't know. That's a good question. So, bottom line is, this is the way the Brisker Rav is treatment of the sugya. But we have to know that there's another whole issue of David's lineage, which is actually much more problematic than this. What else is with David HaMelech? We'll see how this all ties in. We have a story here that Shaul was losing his kingship, and Shmuel is crying to God, forgive Shaul, and basically God says to Shmuel, give it up, it's over with. Leave it alone. Shaul's out of a job. Go to Yishai, and one of his kids are going to become the king. And there's the whole story here. Shmuel says, I'm afraid Shaul's going to kill me. He said, no, go on the subterfuge. Go visit the town of where Yishai lived, I presume it's Hebron, and Beis Lechem, not Beis Lechem, and say you bring some type of carbon, right? There's no Beis Hamikdash then, so you can bring carbon wherever you want. And then tell Yishai, by the way, bring your sons. That's what it is. They come, and Shmuel comes to the town, and everyone's, oh my gosh, Shmuel came to town. They don't know what he's doing there. But don't worry, we're having a little party over here, a little carbon. Bring out Yishai. He says to Yishai, bring your sons. One of them is going to become the king. No, who's the first son that's represented? Eliav. Eliav was tall, dark, handsome, dashing, a Talmud Chacham, sort of like me. No, nothing like me. Eliav, amazing. And the second Shmuel sees him, he's totally enamored. He's totally, whoa, this guy is going to be the king. And then we have the famous pasuk. I think it's one of the most beautiful pasukim in Tanakh. God said, no, it ain't Eliav. It ain't Eliav. Shmuel says, look at him. Ki ha'adam yir le'nayim v'Hashem yir le'levav. Man could only see the exterior, but God could see the interior. And Eliav, for whatever reason, I'm sure he was a great person, but he had some haughtiness in him. The Gemara says that he had a temper. We see later on he had a temper. So it's not him. Eliav is not the king. Right? Beautiful, beautiful. Hashem yir le'nayim, Adam yir le'nayim, Hashem yir le'levav. A man can only judge by the exterior, but God sees what's really going on. Fine. So Yishai said, no big deal, I got a bunch of other sons. They bring out Avi Nadav, also the second son, also very talented and very capable. Not him. Bring out all the sons. So Shmuel says, don't you have any more like Na'orim? Don't you have any more Na'orim? Why don't you have any more sons? And basically the way the Medrash says, Yishai says, let's go eat. Come on, look at the barbecue, look at the carbon you brought over here. And Shmuel said, what do you mean, let's go eat? God said we got to make a king over here. He said, it's not happening. It's some mistake over here. And then Shmuel says, no, what do you mean, don't you have any more Na'orim? He doesn't even say sons. So he said, you know what? I just remembered. There's some son that there's some small guy, some diminutive type of guy. Yeah, and he's shepherding now. He's pastoring now. Let's just go eat. Let's just go eat, Shmuel. Shmuel says, no, bring him over here. Bring him over here. And Yishai is like equivocating. He doesn't want to bring him. He brings him over. And what happens? God says, he's the one. And the oil miraculously just jumps out of the vial, just jumps out of the flask. The Tislach Ruach Hashem al David. So reading the story, and there is something a little bit amiss over here. What is going on over here? Why in the world is Yishai not presenting David right away? He didn't even invite him to the party. And you see that he doesn't even want David to come. He doesn't even want David to show up. He doesn't even want David to show up. He's trying to avoid the whole issue. What in the world is going on? What in the world is going on? Oh, next. If you look at many Psukim Tehillim, we know David had a difficult life. That's for sure. David had a difficult life. He had, from when he became king and on, from when he met Shaul and on, things were downhill. Shaul tried to kill him. His son tried to kill him. He's got Avshalom. He's got Shaul chasing him. He's got his handful. David's got his handful. He's got stories about Shev over there. He did not have an easy life. But if you look at some psukim, there's some psukim that don't make too much sense. There's one pasuk that says over there, "Hein ba'oven chelal tani ubechet yechamatini imi." I was created in sin. I was created through an illicit, sounds like some type of illicit affair. And hein ba'oven chelal tani, I was wounded, I was cut in sin. We have another pasuk. I was always embarrassed. I was considered like a foreigner to my brothers. An alien to my relatives. When was David considered like a foreigner to his brothers? Right? Another pasuk, which he says here, I have so many enemies that hate me for no reason. What I stole, what I didn't steal, I returned. Even stuff that I didn't steal, I had to return it as if I was a ganav. What is that referring to? And Rabbi side, Yasichu bi Yosei Sa'ar, the Gnoisai Shoisei Sheichar. The drinkers at the bar that had a good time making during their revelry to make fun of me and to actually be the butt of their jokes. What is this all talking about? Now I just gave you 4 psukim. I could go on and on and on about psukim David being defamed, derided, abused, and you're like, what is going on? What is this referring to? I mean, he was king after all. And what does this mean that he was created in sin? He was created in Ba'oven Chalalti. There was something sorted about the way he was created. Oh, so the truth is, Rabbi Sai, I don't know if you know the story. This is already brought down over 500 years ago. It's brought down from a Medrash. The Medrash itself cannot be found, but it's brought down in Sfarim already from 500 years ago. There's a whole entire back story about David. What is the backstory about David? Yishai was a big tzaddik. Somewhere in Yishai's life, he also, unbelievingly enough, started equivocating if he's a kosher Jew. He became like a brisker. He became a little bit nervous. He knew his story. Yishai knew he came from Rus, and he was married. We'll see soon who he was married to a purebred a Jewish woman. But he started getting nervous too. Maybe he didn't know the Halacha Moshe Nisaneh. He didn't even know the Halacha Moshe Nisaneh. So sometime later in his life, he decided he's separating from his wife. For 3 years. Why? Because if he's not a kosher Jew, if Rus is not allowed to join the family of Klal Yisrael, so that means he's not allowed to marry a purebred Jew. So sometime later in his life, he separated from his wife. Why? Because his wife is a purebred Jew, and it's a avera for her to live with Yishai. If Yishai is really usher to the Kahal, then it's an avera for her to live with Yishai. He didn't want to be the cause of her stumbling, separated for 3 years. Okay? Again, he also didn't know about Mayav and Limavis, maybe he didn't know the Lachamash Sinai. But then Yishai said, you know what, I'm going to leave this world, and maybe all of my kids are not going to be kosher. He wanted to leave one biological kid that would be sure be a kosher Jew. How is he going to do that? How is he going to believe if he's not a kosher Jew? Again, when I say kosher Jew, that he may be tainted. How would he do it? So you all know the famous Gemara in Kedushin. What does the Gemara say in Kedushin? Reb Tarfon, a mamzer came to Reb Tarfon and said, "Oh, all my kids are going to be mamzerim, and for the next 1,000 generations." Reb Tarfon said, "I have a way for you to get out of it." What's the way for you to get out of it? Marry a shivcha. What is a shivcha? You all know what a shivcha is. In the good old days, there was this semi-Jewish lady. She wasn't Jewish fully. She was a Gentile that became a maidservant of a Jew, and she becomes a semi-Jew. And the law is a mamzer is allowed to live with a shivcha. A regular person in Klal Yisrael is not allowed to marry a shivcha, right? What's the pasuk? Lo yeh kodesh, right? But a mamzer is allowed to marry a shivcha. Okay? Now, we also know when you marry this shivcha, the kid has no connection to the father. The kid has no connection to the father. There is no yichus, there's no lineage between the father and a kid produced by a shivcha, right? Just like, let's say a Jew lives with a guy. A Jewish man lives with a Gentile woman. What is the kid? A Gentile, right? Has nothing to do with the father. That is the same exact situation over here. So Reb Tarfon told the mamzer, you got no problem. What you do is you marry a shivcha. That kid is your biological kid. It is true, halachically, there's no connection. There's no connection. But at least it's your biological kid. And then you free that kid, because that kid is really a slave. So Reb Tarfon said to the mamzer, go outside, get yourself a shivcha, marry her, you'll have a kid, free that kid. That kid now is a pure-bred Klal Yisrael, can marry anyone. It's not a mamzer, you clean your slate. You got that? A mamzer would marry the shivcha. The kid is actually an Eved Kanani, but it's your biological kid. And then you free that kid. That is a Tarfon way of mitaher, to purify a mamzer. Right? All Gemara here. So Yishai wanted to do the same exact thing. Yishai went over to his shivcha and said, listen, I don't know if I'm a kosher Jew or not, but I want to have one biological kid that's for sure kosher. So he said like this, I'm going to marry you shivcha. If I'm a Jew, a kosher Jew, I'm freeing you right now. If I'm a kosher Jew, I'm freeing you right now, and you're not a shivcha anymore, you're a giyoris, Yishai's allowed to marry a giyoris, and then no problem. If I'm not a kosher Jew, I'm not freeing you, and then I'm allowed to marry you because I'm not a kosher Jew. I'm a Moav. And the kid will be a slave, and that kid I'll free, and then we'll have a biological kosher kid. This was Yishai's plan. A great plan. This is all, again, because he was equivocating. He wasn't sure. He was suspicious. So that's what it was. It's a wonderful thing. Yishai, who had not lived with his wife for 3 years, is about to get married, or not even married, just live with the shivcha. He made the t'nai. He made this condition. If I'm a Yisrael, I'm freeing you. If I'm not Yisrael, I'm not freeing you. And everything was wonderful. Everything was wonderful, and he was going to have a baby with his kid. Oh. This shivcha seems to be a big tzaddikus. She went over to David's mother. Who knows who's David's mother? What's her name? Nitzevet bat Adael. You'll have to remember that name. You'll see why. Nitzevet bat Adael is David's mother, right? Nitzevet bat Adael is David's mother. And the shivcha said, you know your husband's going to marry me or live with me. Nitzevet bat Adael, for some reason or other, wasn't too keen about this. I don't know why. She was not too keen about it. She said, what? My husband didn't live with me for 3 years, and now he's going to live with you? Right? So the shivcha said, what do you want me to do? This is what's going to happen. So the shivcha said, I'm going to do you a favor. The night that your husband's supposed to live with me, we'll do a switcheroo, a little bit like Leah and Rachel. And he gave Simonim the whole 9 yards. the Shivcha gave Nitevet bat Adiel Simonim, and Yishai goes into the room. He's sure it's the Shivcha. The last minute they do a switcheroo. And who does Yishai actually end up living with? Unknowingly, he's living with his wife. He doesn't know he's living with his wife. He didn't want to live with his wife. He thought that would be a Safek Avera. Sure enough, his wife gets pregnant. Who's the baby? I'll give you a hint. Yeah, you know who the baby is, right? Right? Gets pregnant. There's an uproar in the family. Yishai and his kids, Yishai and his 7 other sons, the 7 handsome, hefty, good-looking sons, says to their mom, how did you get pregnant? Yishai hasn't lived with you for 3 years. They were sure that she cheated. They were sure that she was adulterous. So they wanted to kill her and her baby. Who's that baby? David. They wanted to kill her and her baby. Now, don't ask me why. Maybe why. It's not clear if Nitzeres Bat Adiel says, no, it was really me that was in the room. Or maybe she didn't want to get the Shivcha in trouble, so she didn't reveal the truth. Whatever it is, Nitzeres Bat Adiel either couldn't convince them, or she didn't reveal. That'd be my guess. She didn't want to reveal anything out of respect of Yishai, out of respect for the Shivcha. And she was being taken to the stake to be killed. They were going to kill her and the baby. The last minute, Yishai said, wait a minute. This is going too far. This is just going too far. We cannot kill your mother. It's going to make a whole entire uproar in the town. Everyone in the community is going to start talking about it. What happened? Yishai's mother, we're killing Yishai's wife. She cheated. Why did she cheat? Oh, he separated from her for 3 years, and she lived with a Shivcha, and then everyone's going to know that maybe my kids are right. The other 7 kids said, oh, they're going to start talking about us again, Mayavi, but maybe we're not kosher either, because we're from Moab. So Yishai said, you know what, we just got to put this under the blankets, under covers, under wraps, and we're not killing her. What are we going to do about this kid, David? We're going to ostracize him. Because since they thought he was a mamzer, they didn't want David to marry into the purebred Klal Yisrael, or to the higher echelons of Klal Yisrael, to aristocracy of Klal Yisrael. They were afraid that if they treat David like a normal kid, he's going to just blend into the rest of Klal Yisrael and marry a regular kosher Jew. So they devised the plan. What was their plan? To have a campaign against David. A campaign against David. So his family is running a campaign against him. Why? Because they don't want to say openly he's a mamzer, that they can't do. They don't want to they don't want to air all the dirty laundry, but they want to get a message out to stigmatize, to put a stigma on David, keep away from him. So they throw him out of the house, and he's hanging around with the shepherds and with the sheep. Every time anything got stolen, they would send out, oh, it must have been David who did it. It must have been that monster David who did it. And he was falsely accused many times of stealing things, and he had to return them, even though he never stole anything. He had no friends. He was bereft of friends, bereft of family. That's why he was hanging around with the sheep and his harp. That's all he was doing. Right? And they were doing this l'shem, again, we have to understand, they were doing this l'shem Shemaim. The brothers, Yishai and his brothers and the sons, were doing this l'shem Shemaim. They were doing it because they didn't want to say openly that David was the mamzer, but on the other hand, they had to give the message that everyone should keep away from him. Okay? So, and also they ostracized David's mother, Nitzeves Bas Adoel. Fine. So now with this, we have a clear understanding of the story. What happens? Yishai comes to town. Good news, Shmuel comes to town and says, good news, Yishai. One of your kids are kings. Yishai is not interested in bringing David. Yishai sure David's a mamzer. David's going to be a king, he's a mamzer. He doesn't even invite him to come to the party because he's afraid Shmuel, who's a Navi, will see David, and Shmuel will know right away that there's a mamzer here. You know, the rest of the brothers are going to lose their job because if a mamzer in the family, the king can't have a brother that's a mamzer, right? That doesn't go good for it. It's not good for politics, right? So Yishai didn't even want him to come to the party. You stay away. And sure enough, Shmuel says, okay, let's go. Where's the rest of the kids? He said, nah, forget about it. Let's forget about it. You must have made a mistake. Could you imagine the shock that when they finally do bring David and the oil starts jumping out to anoint him, they were in total shock. You cannot imagine the shock that the brothers and Yishai had when they found out David was king. They couldn't believe it. And all of a sudden what happened, they called in Yeshivat Bat Dael, said, what's going on over here? And then she reveals the whole story that she actually was the one who lived with Yishai. David is a kosher Jew 100%. And they started singing, David and the mother together, Evan Moaswa Boinim, Hoisul Reis Pina. Right? What is Evan Moaswa Boinim? The stone that was despised, that was discarded by the builders. Who's the stone that was discarded? David. Hoisul Reis Pina became the cornerstone, became the foundational stone. And the Medrash says that why in Halacha do we say double? Because David said it, and his mother, Yeshivat Bat Dael, said it in response. That's why we say it double in the Hallel, because they were singing it together. David said it, the pasuk, right? It's amazing. And sure enough, Yeshivat would say it also. That's what's brought down in the Medrash. Ad Kedei Kach, we find, even after the story, Eliav was sure that there was a mistake. If you know later on, David comes to Goliath, Eliav says, what are you doing here? Get out of here. He was sure Shmuel made a mistake. They were so sure that Shmuel made a mistake, at least Eliav. When David killed Goliath, he finally understood that all the story is true. So Rabbi said, how old was David when all this is happening? When did David become revealed? When did he become destigmatized? At 28 years old. So until 28 years, he was ostracized, derided, defamed, abused. I don't know about you, but you need a lot of therapy for that. You don't become king, you end up in some type of insane asylum usually. This is the greatness of David. This is the greatness of David that somehow, I don't even know how he did it. He found solace with his harp and Tehillim and with God. And he was terribly, terribly hurt. That's clear. But still, somehow or other, with his faith and emunah and talking to Rabbi Shalom, he was able to live through it. And that's why he was the one who was actually chosen for the king. Oh. So now, if you know, there is so that's what the pasuk says. Now we understand the psukim. Hein ba'avid chalalti. We asked, David said, I was created in sin. What sin was he created in? He was created in sin. Because Yishai was supposed to be living with the Shivcha. His mother illegally switched. Bechet yechatani imi. My mother did something. At the end, it was justifiable, but, right? If you know the Gemara in the Dorm, what does the Gemara say? One of the bad things is to have a B'nai Tamura. What's a B'nai Tamura? If you're living with your wife and you think about a different woman. And that kid, if that's created from that kid, created from that union, it's called a B'nai Tamura, and it's a big affair. It's not a good thing. So in principle, actually, if you look at the Mefarshim, in the Shulchan Aruch, they talk about this. It comes out David was a B'nai Tamura. They ask this question. They try to give answers. But in principle, David was created Bechet Yechmatani Imi. And now we understand the pasuk. Ki Allachi Nasesi Chebra Muzar Hayisi La'ach. What does Muzar mean? Mamzer. They thought he was a Mamzer. Muzar means an alien, a foreigner. But it really means Muzar is the same lashon of Mamzer. And that's what it says, Ashaloi Gezalti, what I didn't steal, David would have to return. Because they always kept saying, you're the one who's stealing everything, when they had this campaign against him. Right? So, now we understand if you know, some Sfardim know this, if you're Sfardi, you should know this, there's a big skula. If you have any request, so Reb Chaim Pelagi says, you say, Nitzevet Bat Adael 17 times, the Gematria Tov, and whatever you want will happen. Right? So Sfardim notice, the real hardcore Sfardim notice. Nitzevet Bat Adael, you say it 17 times. Why? Because this is David's mother. And it seems that she also endured a lot of abuse. And somehow or other she kept her cool and she kept her equanimity, she kept herself. And therefore it's a big skula to say Nitzevet Bat Adael 17 times. If you guys are having a rough day, do that. Anyway, if you guys are having a rough day, you can say, it can't be as rough as David had it. And if he managed, we should manage. Okay, everybody said, so let's just end over here. So now we understand why Megillus Rus was written. Who wrote Megillus Rus? Shmuel. Shmuel lived way after the story of Rus and Boaz. But the main reason why Megillus Rus was written was to give a stamp of approval on David. Shmuel wrote it when David became king That's when he wrote it. So it really wasn't so much for the storyline of Ruth and Boaz, it was just to give an approval to others. Like we saw in the Gemara, who was the one who said, Halacha Moshe Sinai, Kach Mukublani, Mi Beish Shmuel Arimasi, that we do say a Mayavis is mutter. And based on what we're saying now, there was another reason why Shmuel had to give a stamp of approval. Not only to say that David was okay, Mitzad, the Mayav and Mayavis issue, also that he was okay that he wasn't considered a mamzer. So Rabbi, let's just end off over here and say it comes out. It's like an interesting thing. If you think about David's heritage, his story, the backdrop of his story, there are a lot of murky issues in his lineage, a lot of murky stories. First of all, he comes from Moab. We know Moab comes from Light, living with his daughters. And then we have the story of Tamar and Yehuda, right? That's from his paternal side, Tamar and Yehuda. Then we have the story of Ruth and Boaz. And then we have the story of this whole story that they thought he was a mamzer. So what's going on over here? Why is David has all these skeletons in his closets? So the Chassidim trying to say, because since Mashiach and David is something so great, it has to be, in order to keep the Satan and Yetzer Hara at bay, or to allow this to happen, it has to be like subterfuge in some type of murky or sorted type of a storyline, in order that the Yetzer Hara and Satan shouldn't realize what's going on, in order to keep them away. So in order to keep the Satan away, there has to be sort of subterfuge and camouflage in murky type of situations that they don't know what's going on. That's the Chassidish shot. But we all know that David, the Gemara says openly that David had a special crown. What was David's special crown? It had a bar in it. There was a crown. When you put the crown, there was a bar in it. And David had an indentation in his head. And only kids from David's lineage could wear that crown, because since there was an indentation in his head, it's based on Psukim in the Navi. The crown would only go on David, and it would only go on the kid that was rightfully the one who's supposed to be the king afterwards, right? That's an open Gemara, Avodah Zarah and Sanhedrin. What was the point of this crown indentation? So we could say very simply, David had to represent two things. David had to be the king, greatness, royalty, but he also had to evince a humbleness, pure humbleness. And that's what the crown represented by having this bar in it and this indentation in his head, this dichotomy. He could be simultaneously be superly great and superly wonderful and royal and a big and very powerful, but simultaneously he also was humble. And that's what the crown represented, this indentation in his head, that you could simultaneously live with this type of dichotomy, great and humble. And therefore, also in David's background, we have all these humbling type of stories in order to give that message. No matter how great you are, and what you're going to be king, and the Mashiach is going to come out from you, and you are the antecedent to Mashiach. You're the one going to bring out Mashiach, but you always remember to be humble. And that's why these are all the stories that precede David actually becoming king. So, and why do we read this on Shavuos? Because when was David born and died? On Shavuos. So since David was born on Shavuos, and he died on Shavuos, the whole Gemara is too late, it's another part of the Shir. That's why I read it on Shavuos. And they say also, because if we're saying that the whole entire Rus is to say Halacha Moshe Sinai, what's Halacha Moshe Sinai? Torah Sheba'al Peh. So on Shavuos, when we got the Torah Sheba'al we want to make sure that it's coupled with Torah Sheba'al Peh. And what is the quintessential Torah Sheba'al Peh? This didn't, that David could be king. That we say, even though it says Moab, but we have a Kabbalah that means Mayavi v'loi Mayavis. Okay, everybody, say. I just want to add one point, an important point. The Gemara says that Yishai was one of the only people who never sinned. There are 4 people who never sinned, right? We said Binyamin, Kilev, and Amram, and Yishai. When you hear this whole entire story, it seems Yishai messed up big time. I mean, it seems like he didn't treat David very well, and he was gonna live with a shivcha. He separated from his wife. So what do I see from this? I see from here, even the Gemaras that say that there are 4 people who never sin, it means purposely. That's what I see from this. That I know that also from Amram. Amram was one of the people who didn't sin, but he did sin. He also separated from his wife illegally. Miriam told Amram, "You're making a mistake." Right? Amram separated from Yeshivat, and Miriam said, "Amram, you're doing something wrong." So I see from that the Gemara that when that Gemara said that 4 people didn't sin, it means they didn't sin purposely. But inadvertently, even these 4 people, it seems, could have messed up a little bit. Because we see that Yishai did mess up a little bit, at least with David, he messed up a little bit. So I thought that was a very interesting point to bring out.